I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever home. Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Ripon Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Ripon Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness. This is the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere. And we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022. May the 4th be with you. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are going to dive deep down the rabbit hole of the great state of Washington, not to be confused with Washington, D.C. That is not actually a state, but Washington State is, and it is full of paranormal, and we're going to dive down into that paranormal here in just a moment. But first, we've got two more fun little segments to do, the first of which we call Today in History. On this day in 1942, food is rationed in the United States for the first time ever due to World War II. And unfortunately, the way things seem to be going in this country, we may be looking at that happening again. Lord help us, I hope we don't. But that happened for the first time on this day in 1942, and that is today's segment of Today in History.
Say what?
Our quote of the day today, folks, comes from actress Joan Crawford. She says, and I quote, "Love is a fire, but whether it's going to warm your heart or burn your house down, you can never tell." End quote. Once again, that is from American actress Joan Crawford, and that is today's segment of
Say what?
And love is definitely a fiery emotion, that's for sure. And one thing, of course, that we do love here on the Dark Wolf's Den Show are our cryptid creatures, and Washington has its fair share of strange cryptids, like the first one on our list tonight.
The Lake Chelan Dragon. In the deepest lake in Washington state, it's said there is a truly bizarre monster living within its depths. Lake Chelan is a 55-mile-long lake located in northern Washington with depths of up to 1,486 feet. Legend has it that there are many underwater caverns within this lake, and it potentially has connections with the Pacific Ocean. But that's not all that might be lurking there.
If it is connected to the Pacific Ocean, then that would mean this creature would have more than plenty of food to feed on.
Stories of the Lake Chelan Dragon, also known as the winged alligator snake, date back centuries within the legends and folklore of the local Native American tribes. It's said that Lake Chelan is home to a vicious monster with the body of an alligator, the head and eyes of a serpent, coupled with sharp teeth, a long scaly tail, and bat-like wings.
Of all the sea serpents that we have run across, I don't believe that we have run across any with wings, more like a water dragon than a sea monster.
Some who know of this legendary creature believe that it could be related to Scotland's Loch Ness Monster. According to one legend, the Native American tribespeople of the area attempted to take out the monster, which was rapidly killing their local food sources like the deer and elk of the area.
And as I have said many, many times on this show, I put a lot of weight into tales that come from the Native Americans, especially tales of cryptid creatures.
And it was causing the local tribes to starve. They wound up damming up the lake, hoping that this would kill the beast by cutting off its food supply, but ultimately it survived.
Which would make a lot of sense if it is true that there are caverns underneath this lake that would connect to the Pacific Ocean. No matter how it's dammed up on top, the creature could still come and go to find a fresh source of feeding.
In 1892, a written account of an encounter with this monster was published in a local newspaper. A young man was said to be swimming in the lake one day when suddenly a pair of jaws with razor-sharp teeth locked onto his legs. The young man cried to his nearby friends for help. His friends came over and desperately tried to pull him out, but the hungry creature was reluctant to let go of his meal. The man's friends managed to pull him and the monster out of the lake, still attached to his leg, and onto the lake shore. The young men attempted to kill this beast with knives, rocks, and sticks, but the story says that it was impossible to harm this underwater horror. It was said that the young man resorted to building a fire and dragging the beast over it. As a result of this final attempt, the creature flapped its wings and took off into the sky, with their friend still in its mouth, before diving into the lake with its victim.
You know, you gotta give credit where credit is due. That was quite an ingenuitive move to try to literally pull the creature over the fire. It didn't work like they would hoped it would, but at least the creature did end up leaving the area, albeit with its victim still in its mouth.
Whether or not this dragon is real is anyone's guess, but according to some prominent locals, this transmedium cryptid is still at large and can occasionally be seen stalking the lake today.
So if you are a cryptozoologist around the Washington area or are interested in doing your own research, definitely take some time to check out Lake Chelan. And I would like to stop right here and give special thanks to the Strangeology podcast that is bringing us our cryptid creatures this week.
Caddy, also known as the Cadborosaurus wilsey, this sea monster is said to live in the waters off the coast of Washington in Cadboro Bay on the Canadian side of the west coast.
Washington seems to have a number of sea monsters, and again, that would be expected as it is bordering the ocean, where I would expect a whole lot of sea monsters to actually exist, right?
The Serpentine beast is described as having a long body between 40 and 70 feet in length, having grayish-brown skin and donning flippers, saw-like teeth, and hair on its neck, along with a camel-like head.
You know, I've said it time and again on this show, when you find different aspects of case files that seem to line up across a number of different eyewitnesses, especially across a number of different states, you have to step back and take another look at the evidence. And that's what we find with a lot of these sea serpents. The same basic body style, the serpentine style with the flippers and the head of the horse, or this case it was called the head of a camel, but just the same, you've got this large horse camelish like shaped head on this serpentine body that tends to stalk the waters of a number of many different states. And speaking of witnesses, this particular creature has been witnessed by more people than pretty much any sea creature that we have had on the show so far.
In the past 200 years, witnesses have generated more than 300 reports describing sightings and encounters with this aquatic cryptid. Although known in Native American legends for generations.
And like I said a moment ago, I put a whole lot of weight into reports that come from Native American tribes.
And by European colonists from the 1700s on.
Now, that makes it even more fascinating of a case file, because a lot of people argue, well, Native Americans just didn't know what they were looking at. However, the Europeans also had no clue what they were looking at.
The first known written report of Caddy happened in 1933 while a lawyer and his wife were cruising on their yacht. Suddenly, they saw an anomalous creature poke its head above the water. What they saw scared them, and they described it as a, quote, horrible serpent with the head of a camel. In 1934, 2 members of British Columbia's provincial government reported seeing this strange beast. Sightings continued to increase, and later that year, fishermen claimed to have witnessed a pair of the monster, one 60 feet long and the other about half its size, potentially a juvenile.
Another fascinating piece of this case file, as we have seen amongst a number of case files, is that it is people from all walks of life that are seeing this creature, from fishermen to businessmen.
The first photographic evidence of Caddy was taken in 1937. The photo is unclear, but it seems to show the remains of something. At a whaling station in Vancouver, whalers had just caught a sperm whale and allegedly found among its stomach contents the carcass of an unidentified 20-foot-long creature that had a head resembling something like a horse and having a snake-like body, and it was finned with a spiny tail. After it was removed from the whale, this picture was taken. Unfortunately, the remains are lost to history, and nobody knows exactly what happened to them.
This is the first time that I have heard of one of these sea creatures actually having a natural predator of sorts. But this would not be the last time this thing was seen.
In 1939, the closest sighting of a Cadborosaurus was recounted by Captain Paul Sowerby. As his ship was traveling north and about 30 miles offshore, he noticed a strange creature standing 4 feet out of the water. At first, Sowerby thought it was a polar bear, but the closer the ship got to it, the more he realized it was something else. And whatever it was huge. He described its body, seen under the clear waters, as a column stretching over 40 feet. Reports of these creatures, if there's a population of them that have continued to survive to this day, have been reported as recently as 2009, when an Alaskan fisherman named Kelly Nash spotted a strange beast in the water. Believing it to be Caddy, he managed to get footage of what he was witnessing. Though it's impossible to discern what it actually is in the video, it's very compelling. Some theories believe that whatever is in this video is simply a group of seals or sea lions. So, is Caddy real? Or just a myth? I'll leave that to you to decide.
And I would like to point out, as mentioned a little bit ago by Strangeology Podcast, it could very well be the case that there are a number of these types of creatures in the Washington area, and I would have to agree, because if you have something that has existed from the time of dinosaur, then it would have to be more than one of those creatures, a mating pair, if you will, to continue the lineage this long, at least in my opinion.
Bat squash. First reports of this flying creature began shortly after the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980.
We have heard mention of this creature before. I'm not sure if we have actually covered this or not, as we've gone through almost 50 states. I can't quite remember every cryptid that we've covered, but I know that we have mentioned the bat squatch on this show before.
After this event, locals began claiming to see a purple, ape-like flying creature in the skies around the exploded volcano. This flying fiend seemed to bear a striking resemblance to the crossing of a bat and a Sasquatch, and is believed to live in cave systems in the nearby mountains.
You know, it kind of reminds me of the Mothman. Interestingly enough, it does seem to fit the body type, the large body, the dark wings, the ability to fly with such a large creature. Could this be a Mothman of sorts, or is the Bat Squatch its own cryptid?
Similar to the howl of Southeast Asia, this nightmare from the sky is said to have yellow eyes, a face that appears to be a combination of a simian and a bat, bluish-purple fur, sharp fangs, bird-like feet, and leathery bat wings that some witnesses say can span up to 50 feet. The most notable sightings took place in 1994. The first report came from the Tacoma News Tribune, which stated that a man named Brian Canfield was driving his truck through Pierce County one day. Suddenly, Canfield's engine unexpectedly died, and his truck slowed to a stop in the road. In that moment, he claimed to witness a pair of bird-like, clawed feet descending some 30 feet away in front of his truck.
Now, I find this very strange, considering the only time we see issues with vehicles is in either ghost or especially UFO case files, and very, very rarely do we see them in cryptid case files.
He then saw the legs and the torso, and then its head and enormous leathery bat wings. Canfield claimed the figure as being an upwards of 9 feet tall, with a coat of blue-tinted fur, tufted ears, sharp teeth, and yellowish eyes. This monster took notice of Canfield and stared him down for what seemed like an eternity before spreading its wings and taking off.
Once again, with relation to the Mothman never really hurt or killed anybody. It was just seen around the areas of, say, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and the many other cases that we've had across the different states of different types of Mothman-type creatures.
Once the creature was gone, Canfield's truck mysteriously started working again, and he sped home. Around the same time, a hiker named Butch Whitaker was preparing for a climb on a local mountain when he spotted a large bat-winged creature fly overhead. Reportedly, Whitaker managed to take a handful of photos before he lost sight of the creature. However, no evidence of these alleged pictures can be found anywhere, causing many to believe this claim to be false.
And even if this particular claim is a false claim, just the same, that doesn't account for the other number of witnesses that have seen this creature.
As recently as 2009, reports from Mount Shasta, California, spoke of an encounter with a similar large flying creature with leathery wings flying out of a mountain. Witnesses claimed its head appeared similar to that of a bat or a fox. And then, in 2011, Bat Squatch appeared one more time to a man using the pseudonym Phoenix Terraz. This man was out walking his dog one day and claimed to see something strange flying in the sky overhead. He described this beast as having blue fur, bat wings, and this time, red glowing eyes. He also described it as looking around 9 feet tall. The man watched this flying terror until it flew out of sight. Some theories purport Bat Squatch is related to Sasquatch, though no direct connections have been made. Others think that there could be an unknown and giant species of North American fruit bat. However, other sightings and missing livestock have been blamed on Bat Squatch attacks, although these claims cannot be proven. Still, other investigators believe similarities with the Chupacabra or Jersey Devil might indicate Bat Squatch being a misidentified cryptid of some other sort. Whatever Bat Squatch is, it certainly defies logic or explanation. If it is real, perhaps continued sightings will shed new light on this mysterious creature.
Definitely brings new meaning to Batman, doesn't it? But in all seriousness, I have to agree with him that I think this is a already known cryptid creature that is being misidentified. Now, I don't think it's a Chupacabra type creature. I definitely am not going to agree with that. However, like I've said already, I believe it's more of a Mothman type creature.
Bigfoot. While Washington isn't a unique habitat for this alleged 7 to 9 foot tall North American ape, Washington State has over 700 reports of this legendary creature,
which is the highest number of Bigfoot reports for any state in the entire Union.
So, let's go. Knowledge of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, dates back to ancient times in the legends and myths of the Native American tribes of this region. In fact, the wild man being is a common figure in the folklore of much of the Pacific Northwest Native American tribes. These hairy giants go by many names. Some of you may be familiar with them, like Sasquatch, which is an Anglophonic corruption of the Halkomelem word Saskets. Other Salish tribes knew them as Sasahivas, or the Yakima, who called these giant beings Steyama. While the Bigfoot were known for millennia by the indigenous people of the area, it wasn't until 1840 when white settlers were made aware of the Native American legends of this race of giants that lived up in the mountains. In the early 1850s, we have a report from a European settler who made mention of these mysterious creatures. Sometime around 1852, a trader who worked for the Hudson's Bay Company named Roch Duchesne was hunting near Mount St. Helens when one of the ape men beckoned to him. In that moment, he turned and ran until he made it back to his home. In the following decades, sightings and signs of these elusive hairy beasts continued to pervade the residents of Washington. In November 1969, however, a set of Bigfoot tracks were discovered in Stevens County, which renewed researchers' interest in proving the existence of this legendary creature. Extensive searches into the area resulted in a collection of over 1,000 casts known as the Bossberg tracks. Interestingly, some of these tracks included a consistent deformity in one of the feet. The left foot measured 17.5 inches long and 6.5 inches across its widest point. The right foot, however, was slightly smaller and had 2 lumps on the outer edge and a twisted or missing toe. A number of anthropologists, such as Dr. Jeff Meldrum, found no evidence that these prints were faked.
Now, that is interesting also that an anthropologist has verified the legitimacy of this piece of evidence.
In 1969, Skamania County, Washington, adopted an ordinance to protect Bigfoot by making it illegal to kill one, and is punishable by 1 year in county jail and a $1 million fine. In 1970, then Washington Governor Dan Evans declared Bigfoot a protected animal and the official state monster. Interestingly, according to one theory, after the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, the National Guard were called in to collect and cover up the bodies of dead Bigfoot which were caught in the forests while the pyroclastic flows were flowing from Mount St. Helens. However, Freedom of Information Act requests have found no evidence of this being documented. To this day, proof of the existence of Bigfoot is inconclusive, despite continuing and compelling eyewitness testimony, video, photos, tracks, and other evidence of these reclusive beings. Do you think Bigfoot is real? Much of the evidence out there seems to indicate that there may indeed be a relict hominid species living somewhere deep within the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. Time will tell.
I don't know about you guys, but if there's any cryptid that has showed up more than the Bigfoot across the United States, I don't know what it is. And as many case files as we have heard on this elusive creature, I have to say I personally believe that it is very, very real. But of course, guys, that music means we have to go ahead and take a network break right here. So my name's Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you're listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, State of Mystery for the state of Washington. We'll be right back with the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show and the hauntings of Washington after these messages. Stick around, don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, Jerry Hicks on a Wednesday night. Hi everyone, it's AJ the Ripon Rabbit. Are you enjoying your extended weekend? I know I am. Thanks to Raider Champion and Tuesday night videos, your weekend kicked off a little early. Yesterday night in the Backstage VIP Lounge, it's rumored that Eugene made an appearance there. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but I can tell you what has been confirmed is a new champion in the Tuesday night videos. Congratulations to Songbird 007, the new Tuesday night videos champion. Top hats off to you, Songbird 007. If you're enjoying tonight's State of Mystery for the state of Washington, then you will not want to miss a moment of tomorrow night as the W's continue That's right, Jerry Hicks and the Dark Wolf's Den radio show will return again tomorrow night, Thursday, May 5th, 7 p.m. Come along with him as he howls through another state of mystery, this time West Virginia. Then I'll return Friday, May 6th, with another Ripon Rabbit Hole live show. We're going to dive down the rabbit hole of foodies. What exactly does it mean to be a foodie? Are you one? And if not, how exactly do you become a foodie? Friday, May 6th. Then Saturday night, we'll explore your green thumb. Do you have a green thumb? Are you a gardener? If not, why not? We're going to look at ways that you can get your hands dirty and explore the rabbit hole of green thumbs with us Saturday, May 7th, as we explore green thumbs. Then we'll end out the weekend right together with you Sunday, May 8th, with a look and a deep dive down the rabbit hole of motorcycle clubs and the 1%ers. Have you ever heard that? The 1%ers? We're also going to take a look at these guys and their cuts and just exactly how we can use each day to be just 1% better. As Jerry Hicks likes to say, if we were to do that for 100 days, we would make 100% improvement in our life. I don't question or doubt that. It's going to be a wonderful way to end out the weekend right together with you. Sunday night, May 8th, starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Be here or be square. It's going to be an interesting show, that's for sure. We'll return back to tonight's topic, State of Mystery for Washington, with your host, Jerry Hicks, and the Dark Wolf's Den Show. You're listening to the Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, home of the Freedom Flame, RiponRabbitHole.com.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Dark Wolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to the second half of the Dark Wolf's Den radio show for Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022. Haha. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, tonight we have went over a number of very strange creatures, and that is only the beginning of the paranormal and the mysterious in the state of Washington. As you guys know, in the second half we go over the hauntings in the state, and Washington has a large number of haunted areas.
Paradise Inn. Paradise Inn, located off the southern slopes of Mount Rainier, out of Mount Rainier National Park in Washington, is a historic hotel placed near the Henry M. Jackson Visitor Center and Paradise Guidehouse, a point at which many climbers begin the mountain's perilous ascent. Historically, construction of this lodging was started in 1916 under the Rainier National Park Company, who utilized native materials, including timber salvaged from an earlier 1885 blaze in the building process, and the inn would officially open to guests a year later in 1917. In 1920, a 4-story Paradise Annex was established, adding 100 guest rooms. The same year, the Paradise Guidehouse was also constructed. In 1931, a golf course was added to the property, and in 1936, the first ski rope was installed. In 1966, the Paradise Visitor Center was opened as a day-use facility for those traveling the mountain. In 1987, it was renamed as the Henry M. Jackson Visitor Center, and in 2008, it was replaced entirely by a new structure. Paradise Inn remains open to this day, offering accommodations to climbers, sightseers, and, as legend has it, to a number of restless spirits, with locals telling the old stop is haunted by the countless souls of lost climbers, returning to the inn or surrounding buildings as the last places they knew in lives since extinguished.
And as we know, those would definitely fit our recipe of high trauma plus high emotion.
And both staff and visitors have reported doors that open and close on their own, inexplicable electrical issues, orbs visible to the naked eye, disembodied voices, whispers, and footsteps, and the constant feeling of being watched or followed. Many have described motion and even faces spied through the windows of spaces that are supposed to be vacant, and the sounds of something scraping across floors, objects sighted moving by themselves, and entire rooms discovered rearranged are all but common.
So it definitely sounds like we have a caretaker ghost of some type here. However, I don't think we've come across any case files up until now where entire rooms were rearranged.
Lastly, and chillingly, a number of guests have reported waking in the middle of the night to the sense that someone is standing in their rooms, and several have described encounters with a hazy spirit which flits about for moments before vanishing through the walls.
And we know humans have the innate ability to sense something around us, whether we can see it or not. But I gotta say, waking up to something like that, I would definitely be just more than a little bit freaked out.
Kubota Garden. Kubota Garden, located off 55th Avenue South in the Rainier Beach neighborhood of Seattle, Washington, is a 20-acre Japanese garden park that includes the Kubota Terrace, the Bamboo Grove, the Necklace of Ponds, the Mountainside, and the Tom Kubota Stroll Garden. Historically, one Fujitaro Kubota would emigrate to the area in 1907. In 1923, he would establish the Kubota Gardening Company, and in 1927, he would purchase 5 acres on which to start his legendary gardens, which he would expand upon to 30 acres just 3 years later in 1930. Through World War II, the gardens were abandoned for a time, and for 4 years, sadly, Kubota and his family were held at Camp Minidoka in Idaho. But in 1945, he, along with his sons Tak and Tom, would return to rebuild their business and land. Fujitaro Kubota would maintain his gardens until his passing in 1973, after which he would leave them to his family. In 1987, the city would purchase the lands for a hefty sum, ensuring their preservation while opening them up to the public as a park. And in 1989, the Kubota Garden Foundation was formed to better manage and support the whole of the site. Today, Kubota Garden remains under management of the foundation, split with Seattle Parks and Rec, and is open from sunrise to sunset every day of the year.
So if you are interested in doing some paranormal research, it is open to the public.
Over its lengthy existence, a number of stories have emerged from Kubota Garden, some of the most popular claiming that the area comes alive after dark, with those brave enough to stick around describing disembodied voices and moaning, inhuman shrieks in the distance, and the sounds of something unnaturally large, powerful, and fast heard lurking in the trees.
Now, see, that's just one of the many big featuses of Washington. That isn't necessarily a ghost. That belongs more in the cryptid category, right? Then again,
the most famous tale surrounding Kubota tells that long ago, the basement of the house preserved on the property was used by a janitor as a place to murder young girls, and those passing have reported disembodied screams, a feeling of strong unease, and encounters with the apparitions of young women, often sporting gruesome wounds.
And of course, murder always qualifies under the high trauma, high emotion aspect, especially of these younger women. You know, they were more than scared out of their minds, being the situation they were most likely put into.
The Capitol Theater. The Capitol Theater, located off South 3rd Street in downtown Yakima, Washington, is a popular theater recognized as the primary venue for performance arts in the whole of the region. Historically, the site was first opened in 1920 as the Mercy Theater, a name it took after its owner, Frederick Mercy Sr., and at the time of its construction was the largest vaudeville theater in the Pacific Northwest. In 1973, the property was added to the National Register of Historic Places. In 1976, 1975, shortly after acquisition by the city, it was badly damaged in a fire, and following meticulous repairs accompanied by an assortment of additions, the theater would sell out at its 1978 reopening ceremony. The site's newest addition would welcome a 9,500 square foot production center and a much-needed loading dock. The Capitol remains open into the present, offering 1,500 seats, while playing home to the Yakima Symphony Orchestra, Town Hall Series, community concerts, Broadway musicals, and, as tale tells, a range of supernatural activity.
I really like the name of this town, and I have for a long time. Yakima, right? That's just a fun word to say. Yakima.
Local stories claim the entirety of the theater is haunted by the spirits of former employees, actors, and patrons who loved the venue so much in life that their souls sought it out after death, and both staff and theater goers have reported extreme cold spots, footsteps from empty spaces, disembodied voices and whispers, objects sighted moving on their own, and encounters with shadowy figures, phantoms in the audience, and apparitions in old-fashioned clothing. The door to the former organ loft has been discovered ajar time and time again, even after staff have ensured that it's securely locked, and when open, has a bad habit of slamming shut dangerously close to fingers. Lastly, and possibly most famously, is the story of Shorty Mccall, a former employee who worked the theater through the 1930s, that's said to have hanged himself when he was rejected by the woman he loved. Many claim his spirit never left, and his friendly presence is said to enjoy pranking staff, especially right around close.
This also seems to me like the caretaker ghost, moving things around, playfulness, pranking. Pranking's not necessarily the caretaker. As a matter of fact, caretaker very rarely has been known to be prankster-like. But, I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility, right? It's not going to discount it just for that one aspect.
Fort Vancouver National Historic Site. Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, located off the northern banks of the Columbia River out of Vancouver, Washington, is a 19th century fur trading post turned landmark location that's recognized for its acting as the major fur trading center of the region, and that separately includes the John McLaughlin House out of Oregon City, Oregon. Historically, the fort was first established in 1825 by the Hudson's Bay Company as a headquarters for their western operations off a bluff to the northeast of its current location. In 1829, it was relocated to where it stands today, and slowly a village formed to its west and would evolve into Vancouver's first neighborhood, which would serve to house members of the Hudson's Bay Company as well as fort officials. Sadly, in 1866, the fort was burned to the ground in a raging fire, and its footprint wouldn't be rediscovered until 1947 when it was located by archaeologists, and a year later, in 48, was declared a national monument. Over time, the fort's foundations were further uncovered. Through the 1960s, reconstruction was started. In 1961, the site was designated a National Historic Site, and in 2003, it was combined with the McLaughlin House. Today, a full-scale replica of the old fort, complete with internal buildings, stands in Vancouver's stead and remains open to the public, offering a range of educational displays, breathtaking views, and, some claim, a massive supernatural infestation.
And as we know, just like with battlegrounds, an old fort would be more surprising to not be haunted than being haunted, because places like this carry high amounts of trauma, high levels of emotion, which of course always, as we know, leads to a high chance of a hauntings.
With visitors and officials reporting extreme cold spots, objects sighted moving on their own, and run-ins with full-bodied apparitions in clothing spanning the ages. Those who've braved the old hospital have described a constant feeling of dread that's even sent several running in terror, and at the parade grounds, a ghostly sentry has been encountered, with some claiming it might be the spirit of one Private Trygve Gerdwine, who was imprisoned for a military offense, and who, upon his release, shot himself in shame right near the guardhouse.
And this, of course, carrying both the high trauma and high emotion, the guy being ashamed of what he's done and taking his own life traumatically.
Lastly, in the old houses on Officers Row, many have described extreme temperature fluctuations, telephones that ring while off their hooks, doors that open and close on their own, and disembodied footsteps. And the ghost of General Alfred Sully, commander of the Vancouver Barracks from 1874 to 1879, has been sighted in the Grant House, which now acts as an upscale restaurant. Sully most often manifests as a lumbering figure in black that's usually spied just as he's disappearing around corners or straight through closed doors.
And as she just
Number
mentioned,
1, Thornwood
this is
Castle.
open to the public for any paranormal researchers
Thornwood
who
Castle,
would like
also
to
known
check
as
it out.
the West Seattle High School
You guys
in
know
Southwest
we had to
in
include
Lakewood,
at least
Washington,
one
is a
haunted
historic
school,
estate turned
right?
bed. West Seattle High School in Seattle was built in 1917 and, as local legend has it, is haunted by the ghost of Rose, a student who hung herself in 1924. Those who have been at the school, especially after dark, report disembodied sobs coming from empty halls, ghostly footsteps, and extreme cold spots. When Rose appears to people, she takes the form of a pale mist, only barely visible.
Though nowhere near as active as most case files that we go over on this show, just the same it follows our recipe: high trauma, high emotion, haunting.
Thornwood Castle. Thornwood Castle, also known as the House That Love Built and located off North Thorn Lane Southwest in Lakewood, Washington, is a historic estate turned bed and breakfast sitting on 3 acres that includes 3 separate structures, and that's gained a good deal of infamy from its featuring as the set of Stephen King's 2002 horror miniseries Rose Red. Historically, in 1907, one Chester Thorne would purchase a pre-standing 15th century Elizabethan manor in England and would have it shipped piece by piece to Washington to be included in the construction of a larger house, which would be complete by 1911. Chester would reside at the home with his wife Anna and their daughter Anita, and later Anita's husband and children. Chester would pass on in 1927. In 1954, Anna would join him in death, and in 1959, Anita would sell the property to one Harold St. John, who would subdivide it into 30 home sites and promptly sell them off. Over time, the mansion grounds were passed through a number of owners until landing in the hands of Wayne and Deanna Robinson in the year 2000. The Robinsons would set to work fully restoring its grounds and surviving gardens before opening them up as a bed and breakfast and highly sought-after venue. Thornwood Castle remains open to guests to this day, offering 27,000 square feet of living space, 22 bedrooms, 22 baths, Anna's Secret Garden, historic tours, events, guest rooms, and, as local legend has it, a mountain of paranormal activity.
I don't know about you guys, but I would hate to clean a 22-room house. That's just way too much for me. That said, if you would like to visit this paranormal haunt, it is open to the public.
Some tell the old home is haunted by spirits of various families who lived in and loved the property, while others by souls tied to it from its time in England. And across the grounds, many have reported extreme cold spots, shadowy figures that slink about, and the phantom sounds of a party, including laughter, music, and glasses clinking, heard emanating from thin air. One story tells that one of the Thorne grandkids drowned in the lake, and many have described sighting a small child on its shores that quickly disappears when approached, and a strange vortex has been spied on the grand staircase, leading some to theorize presences have passed on the property from this very point. Also reported near the grand staircase are encounters with a ghostly couple, with the specter of a man in all leather, and with the apparition of a woman in a high-waisted, Empire-style dress, with a garland in her hair. During the filming of Rose Red, crew members and actors reported a host of terrifying occurrences, in which tools would randomly go missing, cameras or electronics would glitch out without cause, batteries would die at accelerated speeds, and in which doors, windows, or other objects would move on their own. Lastly, the spirits of both the site's original Thorns have been encountered across castle grounds, with Chester appearing around the property and known for breaking or unscrewing light bulbs at random, and Anna most often manifesting in the sitting window of her old room, overlooking her beloved garden. On a closing note, Anna's room is now the bridal suite, which still holds an original mirror, and many who've stayed within have reported her apparition appearing to them in its reflection.
So not only have guests to the castle reported hauntings, even those filming the movie Rose Red are encountering a lot more paranormal than the movie they were actually filming. But what do you guys think? From the cryptids to the hauntings in Washington, do you think it is a state of mystery, or do you think we're barking up the wrong tree? In the end, folks, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and you be the judge. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Dark Wolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022. May the 4th be with you. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday, May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo, 2022, as we cover yet another state of mystery. We only have 3 states left, folks, and we will have covered every state in the Union. We will be ending this series probably at the end of our year mark. It's funny how that's going to line up, but we will be talking about the great state of West Virginia tomorrow. And we know West Virginia has at least one well-known cryptid, Mothman. So definitely tune in to find out what other strangeness lies within those borders. Then on Friday, May the 6th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Ripon Rabbit takes back to the airwaves with another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show. That's right. This time he's going to be talking about foodies. Are you a foodie? These tend to be people who try a number of different restaurants and food styles and usually critique what they have eaten. I personally consider myself a foodie, but I don't usually critique them. I just like to eat them, right? But AJ will be discussing foodies and what that actually does mean on Friday, May the 6th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. This sounds like quite a fat episode if you ask me. Then on Saturday, May the 7th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, AJ is going to be back for yet another episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show as he discusses the green thumb. Do you have a green thumb? Are you good at gardening and planting? In today's day and age, it's one thing that we all should definitely at least look into trying to get is a good green thumb. I really don't have a green thumb myself. Everything I've ever tried to grow has turned brown, so maybe I have a brown thumb, right? But you can perfect your green thumb with tips and tricks from AJ the Ripon Rabbit on Saturday, May the 7th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Sunday, AJ comes back to round the weekend out right with one last episode of the Ripon Rabbit Hole Live Show for this weekend. This time he's going to be discussing the 1%, that little group of humans that think they control the rest of humanity. What do we know about the 1%, and what can we do to stop them? That's my questions, and perhaps AJ will discuss that and more on Sunday, May the 8th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. And you can always stay up to date with everything going on at the Ripon Rabbit Hole and Ripon Common Sense Radio by going to the RiponRabbitHole.com. That is RiponRabbitHole.com. Over there, you're going to sign up for your free VIP Backstage Pass. This is going to get you access to the rest of the many, many fun aspects of the site. It is free and it always will be. Once you have signed up for that, you can go check out our Down the Rabbit Hole section. That is our exclusive privatized social media section where we do not shadow ban, we do not get rid of information. As a matter of fact, we welcome information freely over there as we like to celebrate free speech. Of course, being the home of the Freedom Flame, why else? And then while you're over there, also make sure you stop by the 24/7 Backstage Lounge, where you're going to find a lot of the rabbits hanging out and having a number of interesting discussions where the conversation continues after the show. If you're interested in food as the foodie's recipe coming up, you can also find a number of recipes on our home page. A lot of things that I like to cook, right? If you're looking for a meal in the evening, you can always hop on over no matter what day it is and find something that you're going to like. And that is only a small number of the many, many fun things we have available on the RiponRabbitHole.com. Once again, that is RiponRabbitHole.com. With that said, folks, we have to get out of here. So, on behalf of AJ the Ripon Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everybody involved with Ripon Common Sense Radio Network, as well as Tom Bayless and Red Shed Studios for this amazing background music. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and you've been listening to the Dark Wolf's Den radio show, State of Mystery series for the great state of Washington. Until next week, folks, remember, or until tomorrow, as a matter of fact, remember, stay awake, but dare to dream. That's right. How yeah. Good night, everybody.
Things are better left unknown, and I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. Is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a